Hi, I'm Tom Fitton, President, Judicial Watch, with our special weekly Facebook Live update, giving you a report on Judicial Watch's anti-corruption activities here in Washington, D.C. We are not slowing down. I know Congress is gone now, or is about to leave and won't be back till January, but Judicial Watch's litigation and investigations continue. Along those lines, we had a significant educational panel this week, which I'll tell you about what Trump and Congress, and certainly what Judicial Watch is going to be doing in terms of an anti-corruption agenda at the beginning of the Trump administration, which is a key time to get anything done with a new administration and a new Congress. And then we have a new filing over the Clinton email issue, which you'll be interested to learn about, whether the videotapes of the depositions we took of those top Clinton officials, whether they should be released to the public. So interesting news there. And then some outrageous details about Obama's travel abuses. And once again, Judicial Watch is leading the way on curtailing government corruption and exposing abuse there. Looks like even Mr. Trump may be taking up the fight there with his criticism of the cost of Air Force One. But first, the first 100 days, the anti-corruption agenda. And of course, the first 100 days is a shorthand version of what's going to happen in the first few months of the Trump administration, essentially until Congress goes home in August, which I guess is more than 100 days. So we had a great panel on that issue this week. It's available on Facebook and on our website and on YouTube. All great videos, all sorts of great videos on all those channels. But we had great panelists. We had Ed Meese, the former Attorney General of the United States under Ronald Reagan, a great American hero. We had Jim Jordan, the hard-charging congressman from Ohio, a ferocious fighter on behalf of government transparency and a battle in terms of battling anti-corruption. We had Mark Krikorian, from the Center for Immigration Studies, probably one of Washington, D.C.'s best experts on the immigration crisis. Andy McCarthy, the former prosecutor at the federal level, and who is really expert on what the Justice Department ought to be doing on corruption issues. Also, fantastic analysis on national security issues. Also, last but not least was Ramona Kotka, who is one of our top attorneys here at Judicial Watch, who's been in the center of the storm in these various cases we've been pursuing, whether it be the IRS or Benghazi or the Clinton email scandal. And it was a great panel. You can view the entire panel on the internet on Facebook here, as I said. And just quickly, Jim Jordan made headlines during the panel because he announced that he and his colleagues in the House Freedom Caucus, which is the conservative rump group of Republicans in the House, were going to push for Koskinen's impeachment. Koskinen being the commissioner of the IRS appointed by President Obama, who is being impeached because he lied to Congress about Lois Lerner's deleted emails. And as you might imagine, the Republican leadership doesn't want to impeach. They don't want to do much in the way of battling corruption. They've proved that time and time again. So they essentially had 2 or 3 days to deal with this issue. Koskinen's impeachment was moved on the floor, and the Republicans got together with the Democrats to table the effort and send it back to committee, which means the impeachment won't go forward, at least this Congress. So if you want to know why corruption is a big issue and why the American people are angry about it, it's because it's protected by both parties. You had Republicans in Congress working with Democrats to protect Obama's corrupt IRS commissioner and not deal with the fact that the First Amendment was torn asunder by this Obama gang, and they lied to Congress about it, and they lied to the American people about it, to cover up what went on, at least with Lois Lerner's emails that you remember were deleted, then not deleted, and then they were destroying backup tapes at the IRS. It was a complete mess, and Koskinen made the decision not to tell Congress about that in a timely way, and misled Congress for sure. And now the response from the Republican leadership was, well, we can't do this because if we vote for Koskinen's impeachment, it means it has to go to the Senate, and we can't distract the Senate from doing all the good work it needs to do next year, which is baloney. An impeachment proceeding can be conducted via committee investigation, or it's essentially the committee of a Senate can do the work for impeachment and then present the findings at a really brief trial. So there's no distraction of any real import by the Senate. And so the fact that Republican leadership was pushing that, despite it being absolutely false, tells you that there's a lot of work to be done in terms of battling corruption. And getting back to the panel itself, we were talking about immigration. We were talking about the national security impact and taking on the Islamist influence here in the United States and terrorist operations that have fronts here in the United States. We were talking about, General Meese made some excellent points about the Justice Department needs to end the war on police. The immigration issue, there are half a dozen proposals that Mark Krikorian issued during our panel that need to be pursued in terms of stopping the rule of law crisis on immigration. And then Ramona Kotka, our lawyer, pointed out how important it was to continue our litigation, whether it be in the IRS, whether it be on Benghazi or the Clinton emails. So it's a powerful panel, and I encourage you to look at it. And rather than tell you what's in it, you should watch it yourself. It's an hour long, so it won't take a lot of time. And if you get bored by whatever I'm saying in the beginning of it, just cut forward to our excellent guests. But I think you'll enjoy it, generally speaking. Speaking of Clinton emails, we're not giving up on that. Now, back when we were deposing the Clinton officials from the State Department, her aides, and current officials at the State Department, her aides being Cheryl Mills and Yuma Abedin, who have since left, we videotape all these depositions as a matter of course. So you can see the transcript of the depositions of Cheryl Mills and Yuma Abedin and such. But because Abedin and Mills and others, or Mills specifically, objected to these depositions being put out there on video, the court agreed and at least temporarily sealed them. So meaning you can't see what went on. And as you know, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And one of the big reasons, I think the essential reason the court did that was because Mills made the point that, well, we don't want these depositions to be used in commercial advertisements during the campaign. Our offices are near a train track, so you'll hear a train going by. Obviously the campaign's over, so there's no danger of these videos showing up in campaign commercials. And this is what we wrote in our brief we filed this week to convince the judge to now make these deposition videos available to the American people. The public has a right to know, this is what the court said, the details related to the creation, purpose, and use of the ClintonEmail.com system. Because the public has a right to know, the audio-visual recordings of the depositions in this case must be unsealed. The sole reason for sealing the recordings in the first place was to avoid misuse during the 2016 campaign season. Now that the election is over, the reason obviously no longer exists. Prior to her deposition, Cheryl Mills moved for a court seal on the audio-visual recordings of her deposition. Subsequently, the court granted Ms. Mills' motion and also sealed the audio-visual recordings of all the depositions until further notice. Well, now we think the court should release it. There were 19 media entities who already filed a brief asking the court to make available these audio-visual recordings. And this is what we want. The American people have a right to see these deposition videos, and this is part of our effort to bring sunlight onto the Clinton email scandal. And frankly, the public record won't be complete until we get the videos of these depositions out there, that you can view them yourselves and draw your own conclusions about what the witnesses said and the facts we found during those all-important and historic depositions. This stuff is history, and that's why it's important to be made public. Also, we had just more in the way of corruption from the Obama gang, specifically the cost of his 2015 Hawaiian trip during Christmas time. Every Christmas, the Obamas go back to Hawaii. Sometimes they take 2 planes. But as you might imagine, it costs a lot of money to send the the traveling presidency to Hawaii. And we just got the cost from the Secret Service, and we found that the travel expenses alone were $1.2 million for the Secret Service, which brings the total cost of the trip to $4.8 million. One trip, unnecessary, a luxury vacation in Hawaii. No one begrudges the Obama's ability and right to take a vacation now and again. But the president needs to realize, and obviously he doesn't care, otherwise he would have curtailed his travel, that the travel has real expenses attached to it, and the expenses are not paid for by him, obviously, but by the American people. And I hope Mr. Trump understands that and reforms presidential travel. These are the details. Hotel and lodging costs were just $1 million. Secret Service spent $165 grand on car rentals. Air and rail expenses were $67 grand. So that's all in addition to what we spend on Air Force One, which I think costs about $206,000 an hour to run. And I wonder if Trump saw this material, because you notice this week he said he wanted to cancel the contract for new Air Force Ones, which is currently with Boeing. And I think the ultimate cost of the contract is going to be north of $3 billion. He said $4 billion, but what, $3 billion, $4 billion. The point is, it's billions of dollars to create a new plane. It's wildly expensive, probably overpriced, and so he's right to be concerned about taxpayer resources being used in this way. We need an Air Force One. The president needs some way to be in contact with the military in a national security crisis. But is it cost $3 or $4 billion? My guess is that's a kind of an overpriced piece of equipment, and we can get what we need to get accomplished in terms of protecting the president and his family, securing and making sure that the chain of command continues during a national security crisis. In his role as commander-in-chief, he can run things from the plane. And I just can't imagine we have to spend as much as being proposed to update Air Force One and create new planes. So this is a big issue. We've now figured out, and this again, just the tip of the iceberg, at least $85 million now in travel costs during the Obama presidency. Now, I know Trump has his own little plane he uses. I know it's not that little, and it's obviously not going to be appropriate to use as Air Force One, but I just hope the presidency, we take this controversy over Obama's travel costs to reevaluate the costs of the presidency. He's the leader of a republic, he's not a king, and we treat the president like a king in this town. Those of you who have visited Washington, D.C., the White House has become a compound, and not just the White House itself and the immediate area around the White House in terms of the grounds, but the streets around the White House. You get the security creep, so the American people are kept further and further away from the seat of government, and that isn't terribly Republican, using the small r. And I don't want our elected leaders to be put at unnecessary risk. But there comes a point in time when the security isn't worth the cost. And I can tell you the abusive travel of President Obama has stretched the Secret Service and made it harder to protect him. It's led to issues with the Secret Service in terms of cost, in terms of morale, and you've seen all these scandals related to the Secret Service, and that comes from an agency that's being torn a million ways. This is going to have to be on the list for President Trump. I've always said there are so many fires on the horizon, not just set by Obama, but just generally out there because of this big out-of-control government. And one of this is the costs of the presidency. And, that's something he has particular control over as being president. And I hope he takes a more careful approach to the use of the Secret Service and his travel and things like that. And that's something we should apply to both Democrats and Republicans. So a lot to be done. We've got a big agenda. We've got all these Clinton lawsuits. We're going to be holding Mr. Trump accountable under the rule of law 2, We want him to be transparent. We want his administration to follow the rules, and if he doesn't, we'll be in court. So the monitoring we've been doing over the Obama administration, you should know we will continue to do over the Trump administration. And so it's important that you have someone who's independent policing government. We saw that with the panel that we had this week. We're still pushing on the Clinton issue, and we're criticizing the costs of presidential travel. And obviously we're doing it during the Obama administration, but we'll continue to do it if Mr. Trump doesn't get it under control as well. So that being said, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend. And again, you can learn you can find more details and everything I'm talking about, obviously on our Facebook page here, on Twitter, and on the internet at judicialwatch.org. Oh, wait, and before I go, 2 great stories on our website. One on the EB-5 scandal, which is a scandalous immigration visa program that big government politicians like Chuck Schumer's gang in New York benefit from. Look forward to Micah Morrison's investigative bulletin blog. And over on Fox News, my colleague Chris Farrell, who's our Director of Investigations and Research, has a great piece on the threat, the mortal threat that the Mexican drug cartels pose to the American way of life. It's a piece well worth reading, so we'll be obviously linking that here on Facebook as well. That anti-corruption video, anti-corruption panel video is also on this page as well, so you can look for that there. So again, thanks again. We'll see you next week.